Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick,
And I'm Paul.
and we're going to be talking about some serious disaster movies because, that's right, Twisters is out. I did say Twisters. The S means there's a sequel, as is
Yeah.
way too often the case now, Paul. We're going to do something. We're going to do something that was a singular before. I know, let's pluralize this. So in honor of Twisters and their uninspired naming, which actually, to be fair, it kind of looks cool and it does work quite well. I'm only messing. We're going to look at some of the best disaster films that you have probably already seen, but should actually go back and watch. We're going to pick a few that maybe aren't as popular, so there might be a few things in here that you haven't seen, and we'll give you a few good reasons to watch them. And Paul, I think it's only right that we start with the belle of the ball right now, that being Glenn Powell and his Twisters, because we got
Twister.
twins. If you've watched the
Yeah.
trailer, you'll know what that is.
They've really decided to play on tropes that were in the first one.
Yeah.
Like that's the question. Is this a reboot or a restart or a sequel or what the hell is this one?
Well, I don't know, but so actually, you know what? I'll switch over to the other screen. We're going to do this Earth, Wind, and Fire style. We'll talk about the
Yeah.
disasters based on the elements. And I left my dad joke GIF running there. Sorry, that's Earth, Wind, and Fire, the band, and that genuinely wasn't supposed to still be playing. I decided not to
That's
make that joke, but there it is.
hey, that's genius. It's genius that the joke played a joke on you. So
The
it's
joke
perfect.
got me. So Twisters, Paul, is definitely in some form a sequel because of Dorothy and the idea of what Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton did in the first one, going up to measure and to study and to map a tornado. Now they're going to try and find a way to stop a tornado.
Yeah, because I did see that Dorothy was making a return. We did see a Dorothy system in it,
Hmm.
and yeah, but my thing is that they keep playing on like they have the red truck, but now they have drills on it and stuff, and they keep going cows and we have twins, and they're really playing up. Let's
Yeah.
let's do a lot of callbacks to the original one,
Oh, for
which is
sure.
great.
But look, there's nothing like a big bit of spinning wind to make for a great disaster movie, and it's also a great backdrop to set your love story against, because you just, excuse me for the hiccups, you're going to know this is going to be a love story. That's what you do when you have your Twisters or Twister. You set yourself big spinning wind, lots of action and destruction, and somewhere in the background before the end of the movie, probably with driving rain lashing off them, there'll be a kiss, or they'll be standing there after everything's been destroyed and there'll be a kiss. One way or another, there'll be wind and a kiss. And
Yeah.
obviously, Paul, the truck. Funny you should mention it. You haven't seen the images I lined up. Well, you can see what's on screen right now, and everybody else will see a little advanced notice of what I put up for Twister, because it's essentially the same thing from poster to people to truck. I'm not going to get into Dodge Jeep arguments right here, but let's just say I like both trucks, but I would prefer the original anyway. And that's sans drills. I'm into this. I am one of those people. It's like I don't care that disaster movies are a little bit dumb because they are a little bit fun.
I no, I completely agree. I think that they're just a fun kind of like action packed. I think the biggest thing is that there tends to be no ultimate villain in
Yeah,
disaster movies other than the event that's happening, and you can't blame. There's not a lot of people that you can specifically blame, kind of thing.
Mother
Um,
Nature, damn
yeah,
you.
kind of. But there is every now and again there's like a B plus
Yeah,
villain kind of thing, which is also really cool to have kind of thing. But it's mostly that you're just like they're annoying, but Twister,
which
you know,
for my movie nerd fans out there, Carrie Elwes from Princess Bride. So if you think back to the original Twister, um, there was a competing storm chasing team, and it
yeah,
was Carrie Elwes was the main guy in it. Okay,
yeah,
now stay with me. He was also in Hot Shots, and he played the part of Iceman, essentially the parody of
yeah,
Iceman Val Kilmer. And you know where I'm going with this, because Glenn Powell, the man of the moment, it's all coming together. It's all a conspiracy. He played the new Iceman, Bagman, in Top Gun Maverick. So, Paul, I don't even need red string anymore on a wall with my thumbtacks. I'm seeing the conspiracies in 3D right now.
yeah. It's everybody who plays an Iceman then gets a Twister,
That's it.
you know.
That's it. But which is, it's perfect. You put that in the contract, it's fine. So, Paul, like, well, look, we're obviously classifying this on our earth, wind, water, fire list. This is wind.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like, there's loads of big storm movies, Geostorm and blah 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 and all the rest.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and I didn't nominate, and neither did you. I don't think any other films that didn't have tornadoes as their wind. But the film that you did pick for your wind tornado is quite literally Sharknado.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I thought so if you were to classify different types of disaster movies in the disaster genre, this is the crazy one. Because there's the geostorm kind of level one, and then there's the
Mm.
more natural one like Twister, and a couple of other ones that are going to be on the list. And then there's Sharknado, which is kind of like, let's just mash a whole bunch of bizarre things together, kind of thing. But yeah, Sharknado is just a classic now. It's a classic movie tropey kind of like thing. So I definitely think that anybody who likes disaster movies should definitely put this on their list.
It's yeah, and it is essentially the most recognizable of the kind of sci-fi channel, lava tarantula versus a gigantosaur alligator or whatever, some all these squished together words. But my favorite thing about Sharknado, other than the fact that I've never seen any of the Sharknado movies, but I've seen enough sections of enough of them that I feel like I've seen all of the Sharknado movies. And essentially the image used here, it's a flying shark heading towards a 90210 star, for anybody old enough to remember the original show, with a massive uber length chainsaw.
Yep.
Natural, the disaster is not, but the fact that a tornado got those sharks airborne, I think this is a great pick. So are you saying, because I'm definitely saying people should see the original Twister. If you haven't seen the original Twister, which you
Yeah.
have, you should go back. It's still charming. It still stands the test of time. Some of the visuals in the original Twister, careful now, are stunning. Like,
Mm.
still, they'll have you gripping the arm of your seat in your TV room where you're sitting there watching it now. It holds up. Go back, check it out. It still holds up. It also had half of the famous people that went on to be in things and somebody who'd already been in Ferris Bueller. I don't know. Is Sharknado one of the things that's worth the time, or is it just if you're hanging out with some friends, put it on?
I would. My thing is that it would not be the top of the list of disaster movies. Like if we were to list out the ones that we're going to tell, I'd be definitely like, this is one of the ones that you should put at the bottom. It's more of a fun disaster movie,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Whereas we've got different varieties on on this list. I would recommend Twister because the drive-through night scene is terrifying,
In
and
Twister, yeah.
the yeah, and but Sharknado is just a fun other disaster kind of like winds kind of movie that I could think of. I
Yeah.
don't think there is another one called like, I don't know, Giant Storm or something like that. But
And there's like Sharknado 67 has been made now, or
yeah,
Sharknado 7 or 12 or whatever it is. So, Paul, before I start making fart jokes about wind, let's move on from that element and move on to Earth, which I could have made another inappropriate joke about. Uh, I think there's only one thing when it comes to that for me, and that's earthquakes. Because I live, much as you do, in a country that doesn't have earthquakes. So I've never experienced an earthquake that I've been aware of. And I've spent a
mm,
fair amount of time in America, but never been in the right place at the right time or wrong place at the wrong time to experience a significant earthquake or even a big tremor. Have you? I've never asked.
no, I haven't. I haven't experienced any earthquakes, or at least any that I know of. Like I may have slept
Mm,
through some,
that's true.
but
And
no.
you were in Japan not too long ago. By the way, video about Paul's trip to Japan on the channel. I know they have had some serious shakes. So earthquakes, no natural disaster. Like, we're making fun here, we're having fun with the movies. The real world, different story. Never
Mm,
make light of that. But Paul, earthquake in
mm.
1974, the original earthquake disaster movie with good old Charlton Heston. Um, Maybe not good old, in fact, but this is one of those movies. I think it may have been the first disaster film I saw, although I think maybe, technically it would have been one of the airplane or airport ones, airport like 72 or whatever,
Oh
where it's
yeah,
about,
yeah,
that kind of but this I think was my first natural disaster movie.
yeah.
I didn't see it in the cinema or anything, but, watching it at home. And to say there's no CGI back then is obvious, but special effects and stunt work, this thing is crazy good. Just from
Yeah,
a visual point of view, miniatures, everything else, it's just off the chart.
yeah, like the miniature kind of work is it's once again it plays well too if you want a good experience of kind of miniature and painted sets and stuff like that. It's a very good movie to kind of bring you back to when, yeah, we couldn't like, oh, green screen and,
Yeah.
or, they also didn't build massive sets on like, hydraulics or anything like that. It was mostly kind of like, miniature sets with very cool perspective stuff.
And
So,
lots of very Enterprise bridge, Star Trek moments of we're going to tilt the camera, you fall that way. We're going to tilt the camera, you fall that way. Exactly. Great stuff, though. And Paul, just much like tornadoes, where you got to have a love story, earthquake, a little bit more sinister insofar as like there's people cheating on people. There's all sorts of dodgy stuff going on here. But I do want to point out something that it is unbelievable proof that I had remembered in my head. Is Charlton Heston grabby in this one as well? Because the guy didn't seem to be able to do anything without grabbing a woman by her like upper arm. I checked the trailer alone. I was able to get like 4 instances. What is with Charlton Heston and grabbing people by the arm? It's just different times. I'm fully aware of that, but never cool, dude. Why did all your acting have to be like, oh my god, you blew it all to hell?
it's the intensity that he brings, he's just like, yeah, so.
The intensity of a sex pest. Um, but I'm still recommending Earthquake because so many stunt. Like I think it held a record for quite a while, or at least at the time, for a number of stunt performers that were used. And this is people running away from falling debris, and not all the debris is styrofoam. So
Yeah.
it's worth going back if you want to check out the classic disaster.
Yeah, and it plays well into our grouping of Earth.
Oh
I
yeah,
think the earthquakey kind of one, and then, yeah, we might as well put some oldie but goodies onto the list as well because we got some not some oldies.
that's
You know?
true. Well, the kind of alternative, let's say, to that is you brought up the core, which I thought was a really
Yeah,
interesting one when it comes to under the category of natural disaster on Earth, because it quite literally is Earth. It's journey to the center thereof.
yeah, it's a kind of crazy one because like it does have a couple of disasters, but it is primarily to do with earthquake, which I won't. If no one has, if anyone hasn't watched this film or anything like that,
Trust me, you're
yeah, I
never going
won't
to
spoil
spoil
it.
the core.
But it's primarily kind of sources an earthquake. So like yeah, it plays well. I think the natural disaster kind of thing because it plays well with the reverse of like many of the space ones that we're going to talk about. Because like obviously we're instead of going to space, they're going to the center of the earth, kind of thing. So it's still that whole like crew together kind of thing, everybody working together in unison to save the
Yeah.
planet and kind of thing, which is a very it's a very kind of it's a fun movie. I think that it's got a lot of good it's got a lot of really good moments in the film and everything. If you completely ignore the science,
It's usually a good
kind of
idea.
thing. Yeah, but it's got a very good cast as well. So like I can't like
Aaron
I
Eckhart
can't.
and Hilary Swank and all these people. Stanley
Yeah,
Tucci's in there.
yeah, it's very yeah, and I can't remember that French actor who's like very
Oh,
famous as well.
yeah, yeah. Oh, his
Yeah,
name will
but
come to me.
he's
Chat, let
he,
us know.
they're yeah, so like they're it's a very good plethora of kind of it's all those characters I always find who are in secondary roles are now the main cast,
Yeah,
which and
yeah.
they're all really well, like they do really really well. But yeah, it's mostly just a fun disaster film kind of thing where it's like us versus the planet. It has that B roll like B plot villain
Yep.
kind of thing, but it's just a fun disaster movie kind of thing, and then you also get to see set pieces that of destruction.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And look, you've always had a softer spot for the core than I have because I've ridiculed it before, but I'm taking it easy on it because I actually do think, yeah, it's in this genre of movie. it's definitely worth a watch. Definitely, and you're everything you've said so far is right. The only thing that keeps hitting me is every time I watch it, I remember the first time I saw it. Armageddon happened, and watching the core, I was like, I know exactly what was said in the room when they made this. They're like, remember the money Armageddon made a few years ago?
Yeah,
We can do that down this way.
yeah.
Because it has such an Armageddon copy vibe to it in
Oh,
places. But it, like, you have to love it for it. You just got to love it for it.
that's exactly why I put it on the list. I was just like, if you want an Armageddon esque film and you don't want to watch like Deep Impact, like watch the core.
There
Like
you go.
instead of going up, they're going down.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's
And,
it's a good disaster film.
look, there are certain worldwide landmarks that take extra kickings in disaster movies, and I feel really sorry for the Golden Gate Bridge. Not
Yeah,
the first or last time it was used in all that. So, Paul, my recommendation, because a lot of people skipped out on it because it looked like exactly what it was. San Andreas. Everybody's like, "Oh my god,
yeah.
The Rock," and how many like can we have an earthquake film not set in LA or somewhere near the San Andreas fault just once? But they're like, no, we're gonna actually do San Andreas the movie. It's going to be exactly what you think. And I'll be honest with you, man, it works. It just works. You want The Rock to turn and look at an earthquake and give it the big eyebrow, and he does. He does exactly what you expect. The sporting cast are just fun and great. I have such a soft spot for this movie. It's ridiculous because it's not a brilliant movie, but it is a brilliant disaster movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I will say that, which is it does have a different aspect of like the main hero not being a. He has some aspects of like the hero vibe thing, but it's not. It's like a. It's I guess it's like a normal job kind of thing because he's a paramedic helicopter pilot.
Who happens
So
to
like
be the size and shape of the Rock?
yes, which squeezing him into a helicopter. I have no idea, but like it's nice to see because like plenty of other people because like storm chaser is not a regular thing for people,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. A geologist who figures out that the core of the planet has stopped like moving. It's it's a nice aspect that it's kind of like here's a normal job kind of thing that would be very good to have in a crisis, kind of thing. And then obviously putting the Rock in there and having him be that person is
Oh yeah,
good because like it's a little bit more like obviously the entire disaster is not entirely realistic, but it's got an aspect to it that I enjoy that I'm just like yeah, this is pretty cool.
and Alexandra Daddario has her own kind of they split the movie into two plots or two streams that are going to be separated and come back together. It works. It works. A lot of people skipped it, and I can see Brian in the chat says I can't stand The Rock in movies. Honestly, he's in a disaster movie in this case, so he isn't the most important thing about it. So you might be able to kind of look around the edges, although he's a very large man to try and look past. But I'm saying it. It's an underviewed movie for all the right reasons, as in get over yourself and enjoy its big dumb funness. Um, that's it.
I think that's a very core thing to a lot of disaster movies. I think you do need to. I think there's as we've talked about, there are several different kind of layers of disaster movies, and you do need to kind of get over a bit of kind of craziness that's there.
Yeah.
And San Andreas will be one of them because you're just gonna have to forget that The Rock is that Dwayne Johnson is not is a helicopter pilot.
Well, we've done the wind. We've done the earth. I'm not going to start smashing things on the ground. It's it's time to do the fire, baby. What do you think
Mm.
we picked? Huh? Of course, Dante's Peak was going to get there. Do you know why Dante's Peak was going to get there? Because Volcano is going to be next, and
Yeah.
nobody on the planet can talk about Dante's Peak without talking about Volcano at the exact same time. We did
Yeah,
it.
Dante Peak. There is a particular scene in that that's very hard to watch still to this day. But yeah, it's Dante's Peak and Volcano are kind of fun ones. Pierce Brosnan and
James
like
Bond
they're
and Terminator crossover.
yeah,
It's quite the universe. But the fun thing for me about Dante's Peak is like I say, you know, we did our years back when we started the channel. One of the first things I ever pitched was the whole twin movie thing,
Yeah,
and then we did it, and it was obviously like, you know, right? Oh well, what could we do? Straight away, I said Deep Impact and Armageddon, and you were like, oh yeah, and obviously Dante's Peak and Volcano. And we're like, yeah, they're the ones
yeah.
that are glued together. These are not just twin films; they're inseparably so. And I honestly, I don't know how many times I've seen Dante's Peak. Maybe twice,
Oh,
but
really?
I've seen
Oh,
Volcano about 14 times, and none of this is all by choice. I saw them both once by choice,
okay.
and after that, it's just situational watching.
Yeah, I was. Funny enough, I actually think that. So I prefer Volcano. Let's just get it out there. I prefer
Me too.
Volcano. Dante's Peak has a better start than Volcano does.
Oh, with
That's
the
one
the
thing.
gas and the kids and
Yeah,
the yeah, yeah, yeah.
like it's a lot more believable of why people won't believe what's going on with them,
Yeah,
like
it's true.
you know, and why people are kind of ignoring them a little bit more than in Volcano, where it's just like, Tommy Lee Jones, let's just forget everything he knows and forgets it, and then for some strange reason, no one notices that lava is spilling around the subway of Los Angeles.
They're like, we have the La Brea tar pits. We quite literally have something that we know is, you know, from a geothermal point of view. You don't have to be a scientist to understand. Hot down there, stuff come up. So yeah, and again, somewhere near the San Andreas Fault, these things write themselves. Except this time you do. You've got the Jonesy, the Tommy
Yeah,
Lees.
like I can't. Tommy Lee is a better leading man in this than Pierce Brosnan is in. He's just got a level of kind of Pierce Brosnan's just got a level of like I don't know, panache or something like that. I think James Bond
You
has
could have
ruined
said
him.
smug. I would have let it go.
Yeah, I guess that's actually probably a better word. Yeah, he is kind of smug, and like I think in Dante's Peak that kind of doesn't go well
Yeah,
with his kind of character, his caring character. Whereas Tommy Lee Jones is like it's he's a disaster expert, you know, kind of thing. I can definitely see Tommy Lee Jones being a disaster expert,
Tommy Lee
you
Jones
know.
plays crotchety man. Like exactly. It's you know, on your crotchety man list of typecasting, Tommy Lee Jones essentially is. He's not the first name. He's the heading on the headed paper of crotchety man actor.
Yeah, but isn't he part of like the what is it, the FDAM, the Federal Depart or Federal
Mm,
Disaster and
Yeah,
Management thing or something?
the he's the FEMA thing, except I think they
Ye-
renamed it the Office of Emergency Management or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, so like but he's a lot more believable as a character like that than Pierce
gotcha,
Brosnan is
gotcha.
as a very zealous geologist.
And
So
let's face it, the reason Volcano for me is better than Dante's Peak is Dante's Peak tried to be a movie. Volcano knew it was making a disaster movie, and it's like, let's do lava,
that
let's
is
do buses turning lava, let's do lava on trains where people step out and carry people and walk through a bit of lava and then appropriately die just while saving the kid or whatever.
yeah, I will say that that is funny with like as in these both two films have a melty person scene.
Mm,
And one of them has scarred me, and one of them has made me a lot more sad than the other.
yeah,
As in, Melty Granny is horrible, and Melty, Subway Guy is
is
it's
heroic
sad.
and sad as
Yeah,
only a disaster movie can, which is why I always, when people are like, "Oh, Dante's Peak or Volcano," I'm like, "Volcano is the disaster movie." If you
Mm.
want to measure Dante's Peak against all movies, you'll find it's actually not that good because it doesn't know what it wants to be, man. But either way, they're both super fiery movies that are a bit of fun. Paul, there is one that I'm so glad we're going to getting to give a mention thanks to you, and that's Only the Brave. This is where we
yeah,
get serious for a moment. Uh, I adored this film, and it is the kind of movie that Josh Brolin's made to be in. Like, I think this is why they created a Josh Brolin, so that you could have somebody as earnest and, you know, dependable and likable in that kind of I'm gonna go and save a tree and save people way.
yeah. Like, yeah, he plays. It's a very charming film with all the people that are in it. Because Jennifer Connelly and Josh Brolin and Miles Teller are in it and stuff, and they play an absolute fantastic person. The story is based on I can't remember exactly. It's like it's a certain town's kind of brush fire squad,
Yep.
and they pull themselves to become hotshots, which are the elite of that group or the bushfire kind of like fire department. And essentially, it's a real life disaster that actually happened. That's where our kind of more serious elements come.
Yeah.
But it is a incredibly charming film throughout, and it is very heart wrenching when the disaster actually happens. And it's entirely the cast. You learn to love everybody in the cast, everybody in part of the fire department, the bushfire kind of department and stuff. So it is a lot more serious than the other ones that we've said. It's still a disaster movie, more on the serious end that we talked about, but it's a must see. It's so
But
charming.
here's the thing: based on a true story is the gut punch to it all, and also it's what really elevates it. But Paul, if it hadn't been based on a true story, it would still be a spectacular recommendation. People should see Only the Brave. There are very few movies like it, and particularly in the disaster genre. So I think it's definitely worth a watch. They're so criminally underwatched. The amount of people that have seen this movie is way, way, way too few. Get yourself, I don't know what streaming service it's on. I think it might be on all of them at this stage. Go and watch Only the Brave.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very good recommendation.
So, Paul, what does that leave us with? Water, I'd say, which when you think water, there's all sorts of ways. There's storms, there's floods, there's the most cinematic thing in the world. Tidal wave, tsunami, rogue wave, massive wave, big wave, great surf, whatever way you want to look at it. But there is nothing more cinematic because everybody deep down, as scary and as dangerous and deadly as these things are, since you're a kid, when you heard of tsunamis, you thought, oh, that's a wave I recognize. Imagine that if it was the size of a skyscraper. And then you get to go and watch it happen in a movie.
Yeah, it's a cliff, not a cliff house. It's like a trope of a disaster movie to have some kind of big wave coming in, kind of thing. Which is not. It's still one of the kind of most dangerous and most kind of like harrowing kind of thing because like we're always taught as like you are less powerful. The sea is more powerful than you are. Kind of thing, and this is one way of showing us. It's
Yeah.
literally like, yeah, let's just see it wipe out an entire, just wipes out everybody. And obviously, what you're showing now is kind of like the different levels of tsunamis that have been portrayed on the big screen. So,
And the
yeah,
Golden Gate Bridge never does well out of it.
yep.
Bruce Lee, be like water. Water is the most terrifying thing in the most beautiful way that it can be hard as a rock and yet as soft as silk. So, water, of all the things in this list, there's a reason water goes last. Now, Paul, again, to be a little bit serious, I haven't seen The Impossible. Have you seen The
Hmm.
Impossible?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Well, I do know that it wasn't just a film made to introduce the world to a future Spider-Man, but it's actually based on something that we all watched pretty much because I think it happened around Christmas time. I don't know how many years ago that was.
Yeah, it was the big kind of Indonesia kind of tsunami.
Mm.
This is an interesting one as well because it starts with the disaster happening and it's essentially the aftermath of it. It's a very difficult story to watch. Very much like which is
Only
the
the Brave.
yeah. It is based on a true story. There has been considerable amount of changes to the original story, which is obviously for filming audiences, I guess would probably be the best way to describe it. But yeah, it's a very good story. Also, yeah, Tom Holland kind of starts. This is one of his starts and stuff like that. But it's and which goes Ewan McGregor is very good in it. It's a good film, but it's a hard watch.
It's on my list, but I think we better lighten up before we finish on this. Lisa says she's seen it. It was pretty good. So look, I'm going to take that for both of you. It's definitely something I should check off the list. One that I checked off the list years ago, Paul. Deep Impact.
Yeah,
Let's face it. Deep Impact. Again, stuck with Armageddon, glued at the hip. But
yeah,
for me, Deep Impact, not about the asteroid in a lot of ways. It's about the big wave. There's a whole load of plot. There's a whole load of stories. But it really is, they did their wave in a couple of ways. They did the whole, father and daughter estranged, getting back together on a beach. I think she says, "I love you, Daddy," just before, the wave
yeah.
hits or something to that effect. And then you get to see the mass scale. Like Deep Impact, whether you love or hate the movie, it doesn't let you down on the disaster movie water part, but it does manage to keep a little bit of heart there too. So it's not just shot from a distance, it tries to get you close up to the disaster and make you have the
Yeah,
feels.
yeah, it gives you a perspective that which just many of the other ones doesn't, in the sense that two characters who you learn of quite a lot in this film and then connect with, and then obviously they lose their lives because of it.
Yeah.
Um,
And another one, Paul, that you get to know the characters, Perfect Storm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect Storm is a really good one. Once again, based on a true story, like The Impossible and which is The Brave. Yeah, it's a really good kind of film that everybody should watch. You get to know all the crews and everything like that. It's really kind of telling. It gives you an insight into like the deadliest catch kind of like world, I guess, and what they have to endure in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Perfect Storm, Paul. I remember going to see this, and I remember specifically going a long way to see it, as in they just opened a brand new big screen. I think it was in the Blanchardstown one or out in Liffey Valley, so it was like it was called the big one or whatever.
Yeah,
And somebody I was working with at the time was saying, "Oh yeah, we gotta see this thing, and we gotta go to the big screen for it." We all hopped in a car, drove out there, and it's for a guy who spent a lot of time living the coast and around people who fish. Uh, it really did resonate with me up until obviously the point of the fantastically massive wave that I've never seen anything like. But the idea of how people live and work around trawling and being a fisherman or fisher people.
yeah. It's a great. The start of the film really kind of gives you an insight into the crew's kind of own worlds and everything like that, which is really really good. Because that's what you need with this kind of element of disaster film. It's very personal.
Hmm.
And we've got several other personal kind of disaster movies on this list, and I think that's what makes kind of like Only the Brave and which goes The Impossible and
Perfect
Perfect
storm.
Storm really good, is because they gel. You become very personable with the characters, kind of thing. They're very endearing in a lot of ways. So yeah,
Criminally overlooked as well, Paul. It's another one of
yeah,
those movies. If you didn't catch it the first time round, a lot of people are like, What's the perfect storm?" And what you didn't see it 25 years ago or whenever it came out, and they're like, "Never heard of it." It's a George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg film that a lot of people have just never heard of.
it's got such a good cast though.
Hmm.
It's like which was John Hawkes as well, which was like
C. Riley, isn't it? Isn't he?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and also William Fetcher.
Oh yes, yeah. Which he like. I actually love his character. Actually, he's on screen right now. He's the guy with the bandana on the left and the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Seriously, folks, if you haven't seen it, see it. If you haven't seen it for a very long time, see it. There's going to be parts of this that you don't remember. It does a great job of building a feeling of real world, a feeling of tension, and like all the best movies, it makes you care about the people, not just makes you wait for the big wave.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. It's kind of a lot of desperate. There's a very good story of why they do what they do, and everything like that. In the kind of list of disaster movies and stuff like that, I think it's kind of it's obviously on the more kind of serious end of things and stuff, but it's also portrayed very well with the characters.
Well,
So
we're on a loser with the chat tonight because we have people saying I can't watch The Rock, and now Lisa's saying she just doesn't like Mark Wahlberg. Fair enough. Actually, I think if I don't mind him, but if you don't like him, I think you might find him less annoying in this movie if you've never seen it. And it is the Mark Wahlberg of a longer time ago, let's say, younger Mark, mini Mark. Um, Paul, there's one more that we can't kind of get off water without mentioning because it has the big wave, but also it is The Day After Tomorrow is just one of those ones that I think everybody has seen. I don't think this is criminally underwatched or anything like some of the others.
yeah,
But when it comes to water in all its forms, especially water then becoming icy and being part of hypothermia and being part of being trapped, it's and Lisa says, "Yeah, here we go. It's what we've been waiting for." Yeah, it's the big one. We're burying the lead for a reason. This is probably the best combination of got your big wave, you got your tension all the way. It's I love this movie. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I love, Mr. Quaid, as I'm going to call him. I feel weird calling him Dennis because I feel at this point he should get more reverence. I don't know why I don't watch this movie once a year, because it's one of the films and all this that it is for me one of the quintessential modern disaster movies.
Yeah, it's got a lot of the great tropes and everything like that. You've got the more scientific kind of group, and then you've got the kind of like survivor group, and they tell different stories, which is nice,
And
kind
you
of
get the
thing.
love story inside the survivor group, of course.
Yes, yeah, of course, it's very important. Which, but yeah, I think it's really good. I think also, it's not Toby Maguire. I don't know
Jake
why.
Gyllenhaal,
I
that
just
can
went
happen.
immediately to yeah. Jake Gyllenhaal is really really good in this film. It's a younger kind of Jake Gyllenhaal, and then Dennis Quaid as a scientist father kind of thing is very very good. Like there's the characters in this film are very very fun to watch in the sense of like each of them have their own specific personalities, which is really really cool. But then there's obviously a lot of tragedy in this one as well. So
And
just good.
I've just realized if they're ever going to remake it, they should just get who did you say for Jake Gyllenhaal there a second ago?
Toby Maguire.
Tobey Maguire and Kurt Russell. Because let's face it, Kurt Russell and Dennis Quaid get swapped. Tobey Maguire and there are some people in, hey, I smell an episode of our show. People who have their kind of Hollywood doppelganger-ish person. I'm seeing this. This is getting love in the comments. Day After Tomorrow is obviously a popular pick. 2012 didn't make the list.
Yeah,
Not maybe the greatest John Cusack film ever, but I still enjoy it for its disasterness.
it's got a lot of. I think it goes across a lot of the disaster genre kind of thing with like Yellowstone Park and
Ticks things off
it's
practically.
yeah
Yeah.
kind of thing. Interesting fact about which is the Day After Tomorrow. The director, what is it, Roland?
Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, he was actually on Joe.ie in an interview recently, and he talked about a project that he was doing called The Exodus, which he could say is a loose sequel to The Day After Tomorrow. The article came out
Ooh,
over this week,
right.
kind of thing. He would say that it's a I don't know, it kind of like a spiritual successor to the Day After Tomorrow called
So
Exodus.
that would make it some days after the day
Yeah,
after tomorrow.
it would
Well,
be
at
a
least they're not
week.
letting the Fast and Furious people name it. That's all. Oh, yeah, a week after the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Like, because I think we're getting 28 years later as well. Um,
I think that's awesome. Well, Paul, we're at our time. They have to turn us back into pumpkin heads now. Uh, I'd like to thank all the people in the live chat. You've all been awesome. Anybody watching in Futureland, get yourself into the comments on your way. Please feel free to give us a like if you liked what we did. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more of what we do. But very importantly, get into those comments. What's your favorite disaster movie? And anybody who wants to start, oh, disaster movies are terrible, they're not good. Take them for what they are. You know you have a favorite.
yeah, just do it. But yeah. Which is I've been Paul.
I've been Patrick.
We've been here. Bye.
We have. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
If it gets windy, go inside, all right? Bye bye.